They have an image problem. They aren't FAA approved, and the technology is still evolving. But make no mistake, newsrooms are already thinking about the enormous potential for drones as journalistic tools.
Nebraska is facing a record-breaking drought.
This YouTube video is a glimpse into the future.
In the sky, a drone offers a different drought perspective.
Students at the University of Nebraska's Drone Journalism Lab used small drones to capture images like these to show the impact of a dramatic drought.
It's amazing how little water there is in the river.
That promise of easy do-it-yourself aerial video is tantalizing.
They started really beating up on this girl.
Imagine how drone video might have added to our perspectives of stories ranging from the Occupy protests to the traditional rolling rallies after a sports championship. But now the downsides. The FAA is taking a hard line on civilian drone use as it drafts regulations. People might not appreciate the idea of small cameras buzzing around over their heads, raising questions about safety and privacy. And then there's the image problem. Drones are mostly associated with hit jobs, not journalistic hit jobs, at least not yet.
I think it's totally cool. And tip of the hat to you, Josh. We got the idea from the Neiman Journalism Lab. So meanwhile, they stopped that Nebraska experiment, apparently.
Yeah, back early this fall, the University of Missouri and Nebraska both have drone journalism labs. They both got shut down by the FAA because the rules are still being made. I mean, there are some legitimate concerns about this, and there is a regulatory process that we should go through. But I know as anytime a journalist who's covered a big breaking news event, in a lot of cases you want to get to as high a point as you possibly can to see what the crowd is doing, to see what's going on underneath. But doing that means that you have to step away from the crowd. And sometimes there isn't a tall building overlooking Tahrir Square or anything like that. So I understand the appeal on certain kinds of stories. And we already have helicopters that hover over these sorts of scenes, but that's limited to the kind of people who can afford to have a helicopter, which necessarily cuts down
Think about what it could do for the traffic journal. I mean, a lot cheaper than helicopters.
Yeah.
No manpower. You don't have to worry about a helicopter going down.
I think the FAA's main concerns are really based around safety, and I think they
don't care about privacy.
There are, drones. If you have a drone, and it's you can buy fairly powerful ones now on the open market, and you don't want to get up to where the real planes are flying. It can cause some difficulties.
I think it's very cool too, but I agree that there is a potential safety concern here. I mean, what if you had, 8, 10, 12 news organizations flying drones over some sort of big crowd, and a couple of them collide, they fall down into the crowd. I'd love to see it, but it really has to be regulated in a way that the public safety is protected. And obviously they don't care about privacy, but there are some privacy concerns too. I mean, you could be flying this over somebody's home, I suppose, which
they're doing that now.
Yeah.
Got news for you. I saw a drone when I was up at Lake George this summer.
One of the issues that came up, raised by someone, I think, in one of these programs, was that if the FAA refuses to give a license to a journalistic organization to put a drone up, are they then in violation of the First Amendment because you're limiting the ability of the public to gather news and what? Which I found an utterly ridiculous argument. It would be like saying to a satellite truck at a TV station that you can go out with ball tires and no headlights and no turn signals because otherwise, if the troopers stop you, they're somehow violating the First Amendment. I think the safety concerns are very real and ought to be adhered to here. But they are cool.
Okay, so I'm going to be kind of the grump here because I'm always worried about privacy. And I'm worried about the Google Street View. Come on. So this is like the Google Street View about times 100. You're in your little living room and there's a drone getting all your business all over the, doing well. I find that very uncomfortable. I know that's the privacy issue that nobody cares about. The other part of it is at least in these early renditions, it can only stay up there for 4 hours or some ridiculous small amount of time because it's so expensive. So it doesn't exactly replace helicopters doing news information and all of that. And then none of you concerned that this is a situation where you have to cooperate with the government in ways that journalists are generally uncomfortable with. I mean, that's...
We have to do that with helicopters.
Yeah, but this is a little bit more. This is more sophisticated.
You have to get a license to operate one.
Yeah, but it seems like, I mean, I know you made fun about whether or not you're going to... It just feels to me there's a little overlap there that ought not be from our perspective as journalists. And I don't know how that gets worked out, frankly, because the government should have some impact in how these things get distributed and who has them and who doesn't. I mean, God knows.
Well, they shouldn't have any say over who has them, but they should be licensing them so you don't have like
the same licensing process for a journalist as for anyone else.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, the NRA's next cause will be shoulder-fired missiles that they can take down the drones.
But it is interesting to think about a future 5 years from now, let's say 10 years from now, where let's imagine the globe has a drone that is always outside Marty Walsh's house that is watching who's going in. It's a totally, technologically, that could be something that we're looking at.
Yeah, and if I'm Lori, I'm not digging that. Yeah. By the way.